Hey everyone, welcome back to The Moment Live. It's your old pal Meredith Lynch, and I'm joined by my slightly younger pal, Rebecca Senenez, as always for The Moment Live. And we're so excited. We have a really great guest today. I remember when she first followed me on social media, and I was like, oh, damn. If it isn't the boss lady herself, Olivia Howell. Olivia is the co founder and CEO of Fresh Starts Registry, the first ever divorce and life transition registry that helps people rebuild their homes and lives after separation with expert support and practical essentials. She's the author of What to Consider When You're Considering Divorce and your divorce support team and host of a podcast called Divorce Happens and a Fresh Start Story. Olivia, we're so excited that you're here today.
I'm so excited to be here. And I remember meeting you the first moment our origin story, Meredith. So we have come a long way together, and I'm just very happy to be here today.
We've been wanting to do a long time. We've been talking about, because this is one of the things I'm going to let Meredith talk about, the things we're going to talk about today. But one of the things that you've become an expert on is some of the new voting rules, including the SAVE Act. And so we've been talking for a long time. We've been saying we need to get Olivia on to talk about this because it's fascinating and important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's one of the things we're going to talk about today. We have so many things we're going to talk about today. Prince Andrew has been arrested in the Epstein investigation. The SAVE Act and the fight over voting access continues. The Supreme Court has just come in with a ruling. This is like breaking news. They struck down Trump's tariffs. And then we have a really great guest today. If you ever listen to my podcast, Oddly Specific, this is one of those episodes that people always tell me is their favorite episode. My sister has listened to this one 3 times, which is shocking because I don't think she even likes talking to me that much. And that is Brendan Ballou is here, and he's going to talk about his new project that is about holding people accountable in government office. And I've already been emailing him case ideas. So I got a lot of thoughts on this.
Pipeline. You're like,
totally.
And this person and this person.
He's like, Meredith, I don't think we can sue Mark Wahlberg for anything related to what I'm doing.
You can always try.
We need to sue Tyra Banks for her war crimes against millennial women. So if he's willing to take that up, we'll submit that.
Here's one case he probably won't be taking up. Andrew Mottenbont Windsor, formerly known as Prince Andrew, has been arrested for suspicions of misconduct in the public office in connection to Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking ring. And y'all, first of all, I got to ask you, what did you think when you heard that Prince Andrew had been arrested?
I'm going to let Olivia go first, but do we have the picture of him in the back seat? Maybe not. Maybe not. Go ahead. Go ahead,
Olivia. Say that he looked like he. Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mary.
You, Olivia.
So my sister lives in Scotland, so she's 5 hours ahead of us. So I always get the news a little bit ahead of time. And so I woke up to the news from her. My mom has been following this. She's a royal person. She loves following the royals. So we have been chatting about it nonstop. And I think that it's great, right? This is kind of the beginning of the end. I mean, and I talk a lot about patriarchy and the dominoes falling and all that. We're seeing it happen. And I think that this is really important. It may seem small in the big picture, but it is not small at all.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I thought that the statement from King Charles, which I refuse to call him King Charles. I'm just going to call him Prince Charles. But I thought the statement from him was really interesting because I'm just going to read it if you haven't heard it. What now follows is the full, fair, and proper process by which this issue is investigated in the appropriate manner by the authorities. In this, as I have said before, they have our full and wholehearted support and cooperation. Let me state clearly, the law must take its course. Rebecca, I have to kick this to you because it's like you actually
I know these
the royal family.
Well, okay. Can I also just say he dropped this? He was like this person is not my brother. I'm acting here as the king. The law has my full support. And now I'm going to go open London Fashion Week. Like he said, no, thank you. Bye-bye. And I'm going to maintain my cultural relevance. And I mean, so my curiosity, Olivia, is like, I actually read this almost like the opposite, where I'm like, I think this is huge. And my fear is that this will be the only head to roll. That it's like a big enough head on a spike that it represents the optics of like, it's the royal family is being held accountable. And so like, we've done our job, the bad guy is gone. And like, that's my fear more than anything. And I think that the royals are expert. I mean, what the royals do more than anything is maintain that institution. And I always found this to be sort of fascinating because they're basically like living monuments. Like their job is to be like, no matter the winds of politics and trends and culture, the royal family exists as a living monument to stability and civility and like whiteness and like all these other things that they don't talk about. But I do think that that's what Charles did here. Is he said like, we are not people, we are not family, we are not sad, we are an institution, and now you will go see me like maintain our cultural relevance, and we are chopping off the arm of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. And the picture of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor in the back of the car, he looks, there we have it. Really, like this was striking to me. This picture in and of itself felt to me like, I mean, like, I don't know Virginia Giuffre, but it did feel like it's like he has the look that I'm sure so many girls felt around him. And in some ways, I'm like, there's a little bit of justice. Like this man suddenly feels the powerless terror that all these girls felt at one point or another. That's my.
I agree. I totally agree with you, Rebecca. From my perspective, I spend all day on Threads. I'm listening to people, right? I think that there was such a fear that nothing was going to happen, right? Like no one was going to be like taken accountable for this. Nothing was going to happen. So this is like one little, like, you know, yes, it's huge. I think it's bigger maybe overseas than it is in America because we don't have the same connection necessarily to him. And we have our own people that we're waiting to fall. But, you know, I think that it was important for people to see this is happening, right? We are taking these people accountable, but it is obviously a huge deal. And we're not used to seeing men take accountability or like these things happen to these men. You know, there's been a lot of correlations. We'll talk about this too with the SAVE Act in terms of family court system and what happens with a lot of these people. And often nothing happens, right? And so this was, I think, very exciting in terms of maybe there's a chance we can actually see justice for this.
Well, I think one of the things that was hard for me is that, like, it's not about the women or girls. This is about the crimes that we actually take seriously as not just a country, but as the global world, right? Like we take the crimes of like giving, you know, corporate secrets or government secrets, which like, I'm not saying those, you know what? Maybe what's a government secret between friends, right? Like that, like we take government corruption more seriously than the sexual assault of underage girls. And that's what I thought when I saw him, when I first saw him get arrested, I was like, oh, he's getting arrested for Virginia Giuffre. And then I read that it was like, oh, it's that he emailed this. And I was like, you know what? I probably emailed a document I'm not supposed to email. Like, you know, to me, I'm glad he's getting it, but it's like, when is someone going to get held accountable for the crimes that have happened against women and girls?
Never is the answer. It's like, no, I think that's a really good point. It's like what we like the moral outrage is what has opened this thing up. Like Virginia Giuffre's bravery really is, I think, part of what started this domino effect. And yet I think you're totally right. Like in terms of like the legal system of people being held accountable, like never, I think.
Like, would you care if Andrew was emailing British documents to Jeffrey Epstein? Like, I don't fucking care. Go ahead.
Do it.
No, they can't, but they're not going to get them for the things that they're actually supposed to get them
for.
Right.
Yeah. I know, Meredith and
this is actually perfect timing because let's just talk about how much everybody hates women.
Yeah, feels like a good transition. We want to talk about the SAVE Act. So the SAVE Act is the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act. It is Republicans are putting forth a new legislation. It passed the House last week. All Republicans voted for it, including Thomas Massie. I'm always like, bro, come on. And one Democrat. And it is a proposal that would require when you register to vote, so like imagine when you're at the DMV or wherever you go to register to vote, that's where I think of it. I just re-registered to vote when I redid my license. You have to prove US citizenship. So that means you either have to have your original birth certificate or a passport. And the way that Republicans are putting it forth that I'm seeing is like, hey, what's a little ID? Why not have an ID? And Olivia is like a real expert on this and how this is specifically going to affect women. But before we go into it, I just wanted to play this clip that for whatever reason, I watched a long form interview between Megyn Kelly and JD Vance, and she asked him about the SAVE Act. And I just thought it was really interesting how he characterized it. And so I don't know whether we have that clip, Vienna. Do we have that clip?
The sovereignty to be with the people who cast the ballots, and that's why we have to get the SAVE Act passed. And you'll hear people say all the time, and I love this argument. They'll say, well, if you look at this precinct, only 3 illegal aliens voted in this election. Number one, that's 3 illegal aliens too many. And number two, if it's not a big problem, then why not just allow us to check ID and exercise some basic precautions to prevent illegal aliens from voting? I never quite understand the person who says, on the one hand, this never happens, and on the other hand, your effort to prevent it from happening is a threat to American democracy, which is fundamentally the Democrats' argument.
Olivia, I want to kick it to you. Why is he wrong? What is he missing here? Because it seems like he's speaking directly to you.
Yeah, I'm looking at my notes on my phone. Yeah, so there's a couple things here that we need to really dig into. One is that throughout history, it's no secret that women have changed their names when they got married, right? That is a patriarchal standard that has happened over time. Obviously less and less now, but it's still the standard by a lot. Which means that when you get married, your birth certificate is going to have your original birth name, and your social security card from birth will have your birth name. You do get a new one when you are married. I have 2 from when I was married and when I was born. They have different names on them, right? And then my license is going to be updated for when I got married, and then so forth. What they're saying is that if there is a discrepancy between the names on these documents, you will not be able, or it'll make it more difficult, right, for you to vote or register to vote. So what their solution is, just go get a passport with whatever name you're using now. That's another form of ID. This goes into a much bigger issue, which is that passports take a really long time to get sometimes. You also need an incredible amount of information for passports. I'm currently in the process of just redoing my kids' passports, and that is crazy, especially from divorce. And then also, passports are expensive. This is not a cheap solution, right? So you are literally gatekeeping people from voting. And this is going back, I was reading our friend Eve Rodsky, who talks a lot about this. She had posted this great meme about it. And I was reading the comments, and women are obviously very upset about this. And the conversation of no taxation without representation keeps coming up, right? How, like, a lot of these women keep saying, well, I'm not paying my taxes then. If you're not going to let me to vote in an easy way that we have been doing forever, then I am not going to pay my taxes. Obviously, that's a bigger conversation. What it comes down to, and what the conversation that Meredith and I had a lot of the last year is that this is really keeping women from voting. And that's really scary when it comes down to it. It is not a secret that we have seen on social media and on Reddit and all of these places. There is a lot of people who do not want women to vote. And I don't think that people realize the mass amount of men, especially, who are very anti the 19th Amendment, right? Which is for women, white women, to vote. And then later, Black women got the right to vote. But this is really going to, it's not just a simple, like, here, show 2 forms of identification. Right. This is a much bigger issue about who owns you, right? Do you own your name? Who are you? And what if there is a discrepancy between the two and you want to vote and you can't do that?
I have a question. What if I'm not for voter IDs, but what if it wasn't a passport? What if it was like, hey, we need a document that has your name on it? And it, you know what I mean? Like I'm just trying to think about the fact that the barrier to entry becomes the passport, which becomes something that you don't have to have a passport in this country if you don't want one, nor should you.
You don't have to have a license.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. You don't have to have any you don't have to have an ID, you don't have to have these things. Yep. So to me, I'm thinking a little bit about the fact that they used to make Black folks pay to vote. Yeah. And it goes back to that to me. Like it's a barrier to, it's like creating a fee to vote. It's not even about like the actual thing. It's about, to me, it's about the money that people would have to spend. So that's what I keep thinking about.
Yeah, and not to mention, sorry, go ahead, Rebecca.
No, you go, Olivia. You go.
I was going to say, not to mention the money, but many people don't have their birth certificates anymore.
Right?
So you actually have to pay to get another birth certificate from your town, right? Yeah. So there is always going to be a barrier of entry that is money here for women. And I talk to women all day long. A lot of women have no access to their own funds or their own bank accounts or literally no money. Like I say that, and I'm not talking, like I'm saying suburban white women do not have access to their own money. So we are really talking about a much bigger issue here than just an act that they could pass.
Yeah, it's part of a broader effort. We're going to move on in a second, but one thing that I just wanted to point out is in Florida, they just passed a law that you have to pass an English writing test or a reading comprehension test in order to get your driver's license. And I was thinking about whenever I've registered to vote, it's always been when I'm getting my driver's license. And so to me, I see this sort of like, like this is one place where they're basically eliminating the ability for non-English speakers to get into the voter rolls. Like there's so many small ways in which they're clearly trying to purge the voter rolls in so many different ways. And, democracy, baby. Speaking of democracy, right before we got on this morning, the Supreme Court surprised us and they they ruled against the Trump tariffs. In a 6-3 decision, they ruled that Trump's sweeping tariffs are unconstitutional because Congress holds the power of the purse. And that kind of like upends a lot of things. So just for the record, Justice Alito, Thomas, and Kavanaugh dissented the decision. In other words, they thought that Trump had every right to do that. And now the question is sort of like, what happens next? Because this was such a core part of the past year, like our country, are we going to have to pay people back? And like, certainly this is something Trump is going to be talking about in the State of the Union, which we're going to be covering quite a bit on Tuesday. But Meredith, like, what was your reaction when you saw this morning?
Well, 2 things. First of all, I was like, are things going to start getting cheaper for me?
Like, probably not somehow, like when was the last time you were like, wow, I can breathe, but yeah.
Affordable. Nothing. So there's that. That was one thought that I had because listen, at the end of the day, I am still an American and the rugged individualism does peek through once in a while. But my other thought process was I was thinking a lot about Justice Amy Coney Barrett because, she, went against Trump in this. And I think when Trump selected her, he really thought he was getting a champion of whatever he put forward. And not to say that I think she's this incredible justice or that I agree with where she stands, but she does not just vote on things because it is what MAGA wants or because it is what Trump wants. And I think that's like, I don't want to like give her, like applaud her, but like she does do her job.
Yeah. I want to hear what Olivia thinks, but I just want to throw out, I kind of feel like she surprised herself. Like, haven't you heard her like suddenly talk about abortion? And she's like, never thought about it that way. I never realized this would be the consequence. It's like in some ways, I think she has come around to new experiences and opinions. But I wonder what Olivia thinks about Amy Coney Barrett.
I think that it's great to grow and change and evolve when we learn more information, right? But I also, for me, Meredith, what I came to this morning when I saw this news was small businesses, right? We have seen so many small businesses close and shut down, women-owned businesses, Black-owned businesses over the last year because of tariffs. And could this be coming back? And can we reconstruct the small business, the brick and mortar, after this is kind of passed? Because that's been really devastating for a lot of women-owned businesses.
Yeah, it's kind of like, has the damage already been done,
right,
and gone too far?
I was just talking to my dad about this. Is like, I don't think like other countries are suddenly going to be like, okay, I guess we can normalize again. Like, I think it's going to take at least 2 or 3 like normal presidential cycles for the world to be like, okay, we can like do business, because we've so destabilized everything. We've so proven ourselves to be an unreliable partner in so many ways. Like, this is how the American public has voted now twice, like,
well, it's so funny, Rebecca, that you say that. I was just talking to my 12-year-old last night, and he goes, we went from Obama to Trump, right, to Biden to Trump. He's like, no wonder we're all so tired.
Yes.
Like, yeah.
We're exhausted.
Yeah.
Someone left me a comment yesterday that they were like, just so you know, half of the country is MAGA. And I was like, yeah, just so you know, in your mind, you think the other half of the country is the leftist woke mob. And I'm like, and it's just, nothing could be further for the truth. Half of the country is not leftist and half of the country is not MAGA. And I think that's like one of the biggest things that we need to kind of realize is that there's a lot of the in between.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who don't give a shit, period.
Right. Who just don't vote.
Like, people underestimate the amount of people that are like, who's the president?
Right? Well, I'm so excited because we have such a great guest today. We have with us today Brendan Ballou, former federal prosecutor and founder of the Public Integrity Project. He is, for 2 years, he prosecuted the rioters who attacked the Capitol on January 6th. He previously served as special counsel for private equity in the Justice Department's antitrust division. That's a special interest of mine. Let's start. Let's welcome Brendan to the show. And then we have so many questions for him.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Oh my God. We're so excited that you're here. I'm going to do everything in my power not to ask you a million questions about private equity.
Go for it. Yeah.
But we're really excited about your new project, the Public Integrity Project. It's this group that you founded to pursue legal action against the private sectors accused of bribing officials inside the Trump administration. So first of all, I just got to say, what cases do we have on the docket?
Yeah, well, I have to be a little circumspect because they aren't filed yet, but I can talk about sort of at a high level what we're looking at. So
perfect.
There are really 2 categories of cases. So one are the people outside of government that are trying to bribe people inside of government. And then the other class is the reverse of that. So if you look at the folks outside of government, you can look at organizations like various Trump campaign committees where people and companies gave hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. And then a few months later, they got their government investigations dropped or their civil litigations dropped, or in some extreme cases, their criminal prosecutions dropped entirely, which is essentially unprecedented. And so, these are actions that ordinarily the Department of Justice would be looking at. But obviously, DOJ is not in the business of going after rich criminals right now. The infrastructure for going after white collar criminals is being decimated. The very office that would investigate that sort of thing, the Public Integrity Section, allegedly has just 5 lawyers left. So we're looking at what are the civil causes of action that can be used to go after these people, these companies, these campaign organizations. And then the flip side is the sort of corruption that you're seeing from within the government itself. You're seeing these flagrant abuses of the law. For instance, the Trump administration authorizing a sale of TikTok's US assets to a coalition of administration allies like Oracle that have every incentive to censor the content that this administration doesn't want on it. So we've got a lot on our plate. We are, less than 2 months old, but we've got a lot that we need to get done.
That's exciting. I have to ask, I'm sure you've seen it, but there's a new banner on the Department of Justice.
I was just thinking this. Yeah.
It's just a picture of Trump. And Rebecca and I were talking about it yesterday, and she was like, "Don't you think that's illegal?" And I was like, I mean, at this point, everything kind of feels a little illegal. But like, is that like from your do you know if that's allowed?
Whether or not it's illegal, it's certainly counterproductive, even for like the Trump administration itself. So, one thing that I think the Trump folks don't quite understand is that the Department of Justice benefits from the reality and the perception of its own independence, but so does the White House. So, part of what, not part of, the entirety of what the Department of Justice does is to try to convince judges and juries to believe things. The only tool that it has is its credibility. And so the more that the Department of Justice is seen as a political tool of the White House going after disfavored defendants and political opponents, it's actually going to be harder for it to do its job. That's why we're seeing it lose so many cases in court. That's why we're seeing cases get kicked at the grand jury stage, which is extraordinarily rare. And so to your point about this banner, I think it's obviously just enormously disheartening. It's disgusting, but it's also counterproductive because it's a literal sign that the Department of Justice is controlled by one man, which is the president. And that's actually going to make it harder for them to do their work, even if I don't support that work.
Yeah. One of the first cases that you're talking about on your website is the inauguration committee. There's people like Meta, Google, Microsoft, like all of our biggest companies have effectively donated to that committee. Can you talk a little bit about like what that committee does, where that money went, like the idea of a slush fund?
Yeah. So inaugural committees are pretty shady just by their nature. So, people and companies can make unlimited donations to these inaugural committees that nominally, pay for the expenses of the inauguration, but the leftovers can be used to go to, for instance, the President Trump's presidential library, where we don't know how the money is going to get spent. And so people and companies gave over $200 million to Trump's second inaugural committee, which is twice as much as the previous record, which was set by Donald Trump in his first inauguration, which I think was about twice as much as the guy before him. So, it's a way for people and companies to give just an extraordinary amount of money, to the president or people near him. And then, I'm not alleging a criminal action here. I'm just describing the sequence of events. Shortly after at least 18 people and companies gave money to the inaugural committee, either their government investigations were dropped, their civil cases, so cases brought by like the Securities and Exchange Commission or the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau or the Department of Justice, their criminal cases were dropped. And in one case, one wealthy donor or somebody whose company gave to the inaugural committee, not only was his criminal case dropped, but the line prosecutor, like the career nonpartisan prosecutor on the case, was personally fired by a White House official, which I think really speaks to just how invested this administration is in making sure that certain people or certain kinds of people don't get prosecuted.
That's so interesting.
It's a little depressing. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, like it does feel like this like web of money and power, which we're seeing play out in the Epstein files too. Like, I guess unsurprising.
Yeah, and the Epstein files is actually something that we've been doing just a little bit of research on. The administration seems to be pretty blatantly non-compliant with the law here. It was supposed to produce all the files within 30 days. They didn't come close to that. They were supposed to explain their redactions. It's not clear that they did that correctly. They weren't supposed to release, identifying information from victims. They released over a dozen photos, nude photos of young women or girls. And as relevant here, there are various times where the Trump administration produced one or more files referencing Donald Trump and then retracted that production. And so it seems like in a world where DOJ facially isn't in compliance with the law, one thing that would be really interesting would be if an independent journalist brought suit under what's called the Administrative Procedure Act, explaining, look, the government's not complying with the law here. It doesn't seem like they're particularly interested in complying with the law here. We need judicial oversight to make sure that the documents that are supposed to be released actually get released.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to play I'd call it devil's advocate, but really these are the friends I meet in my TikTok comments. These are 6394253. So when we look at past presidencies like Obama or Biden, do we see this same sort of pattern? Like, what was Biden's inauguration fund like? Where did that money go? I've never even heard of Biden having an inauguration fund, but I'm assuming one existed.
Yeah. So, yes, he did have an inaugural fund. I may be misremembering the numbers, but I think it was on the order of $50 million raised and so forth. I completely agree, frankly, with a lot of what I imagine are your commenters in TikTok, which is there's an enormous amount of corruption in America that is not limited to Donald Trump and the people around him. And I think what's particularly concerning is a lot of that corruption is entirely legal now. Citizens United really has profoundly transformed how American democracy works. And it's really hard to go after those sorts of things. And I think once we get beyond the present moment, like we need to bring the same energy that hopefully we're going to bring to sort of these blatant violations of the law to some of the more structural economic things that have gotten us to our present moment. That said, I would push back against those commenters a little bit in that I think what we are seeing in the present moment is qualitatively different from what we saw in previous administrations. Previous administrations, and again, I don't like this, except, politicians accept money for access, for, powerful interests to be heard. What you really did not have was past presidents or most past elected officials getting personally enriched through this corruption. And so, you really didn't have an example like you have with President Trump, where a UAE investment firm buys $2 billion of his cryptocurrency that enriches his company and his family. You don't have an instance where a foreign government personally donates a private, a luxury jet to the president's, personal library. This is a sort of personal enrichment that I think is relatively new in, our, generation in American history. And it's really similar to what you've seen in Italy, in Hungary, in Turkey. And so I think it's important for folks to recognize both that there is broader corruption, but that what we are seeing in this current moment is truly unique.
Can we talk about the ballroom for a second? I'm really curious because suddenly, so Trump overnight demolishes the East Wing and is suddenly like, oops, sorry, we are actually going to have a giant ballroom. And then I've seen the number go up and up and up about how much that ballroom is going to cost. Here it is. It's going to be huge, apparently. Now he says it's going to cost $400 million. And all I keep hearing is the American taxpayer will not be paying for it, which, great. So then who is?
Yeah, they keep announcing various corporations and rich people that are, donors to the ballroom. I mean, I think it's extraordinarily distasteful and it's potentially illegal. I think it's important for all those companies that are considering donations to remember that the statute of limitations on most federal crimes is 5 years, and this administration's only got 3 years left. So, if some of these constitute the kind of quid pro quo bribery that would be a criminal offense, these folks are creating enormous exposure for themselves. We've just started thinking about sort of what's the civil side that can be used to approach this. And sorry, just for your viewers and your listeners, criminal laws enforced by the government, it's the kinds of violations that you can go to prison for. Civil laws enforced by both the government and private parties. And those are situations where you can't send somebody to prison, but you can get money and you can prevent them from doing the thing that violates the law in the future. So looking at what the civil causes of action are here, I mean, we're looking at statutes like the False Claims Act, and are there ways that this really looks like the kind of influence peddling that some of these older statutes are meant to tackle. But it's going to be, it's going to be really interesting because bluntly, our laws really didn't anticipate this level of what I'll call broadly corruption, whether or not it constitutes a criminal offense. Our laws really just didn't imagine that you would have a president that would do something like this. And so it's going to require a fair amount of originality to pursue these sorts of cases.
Can I ask a question? It's a little specific, but let's say somebody donates to the ballroom as an individual, right? But they head up a big company, and then a big thing goes away or changes or goes in favor of their big company. Is there any way potentially to prosecute that? Or do they just say, I can't help, I'm just a big fan of the ballroom personally.
Like, I just really believe we need a ballroom. That's what
yes, exactly. Huge ballroom. So, it's a great question. And the standard lawyer answer is it depends. I used the phrase quid pro quo earlier. What you need, unfortunately, our federal white collar law has really been whittled down in a lot of ways by the Supreme Court, so that you really need to show a very explicit quid pro quo, the idea that I am donating this money with the understanding that both of us have that we're going to get some sort of private benefit as a result. I don't think it would matter particularly if the money comes from, the company or the executive at the company, so long as there's an agreement.
Okay, great. I'm going to be submitting cases all day. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm not going to flood your. No. One of the things that I just wanted to ask you about, and I know this was kind of the past part of your career, but you prosecuted the rioters of January 6th. And we have been so grateful to have Michael Fanone on this show and get to know him a little bit. And I guess like one thing I just, want people to know from your perspective, like what don't we know about January 6th as the American public?
It's a great question. And I should say, I was a very small part of a very large team. There were a ton of people who were vastly more involved in the project than I was, but I did get to be involved for a couple of years. I think, unfortunately, a lot of what we don't know was in some of the, I should say the broader sort of criminal violations by Donald Trump. We don't know because, one of the key reports is being withheld by Judge Eileen Cannon in the Southern District of Florida. I'd say, the bigger picture question is what was the involvement of high-ranking government officials, both in the executive branch and within Congress? There was a huge controversy around, subpoenas for the phone records of various members of Congress. Jack Smith, sort of explained, look, these were people that were getting phone calls from the president that day. We had an obligation to understand what was going on. And so it's obviously just enormously not just unfortunate, but tragic that, we didn't get the public airing that would have come through a trial. I think it would have been, good for sort of the cause of justice and for democracy more broadly to have this information come out through a courtroom setting rather than piecemeal just through, the media and various leaks.
Do you think we'll see more?
See more of what?
Just like, do you think that there will be like another sort of, it feels like in a lot of ways that everything that's come out about January 6th, like they're like, we're done, right? Like that's how it seems, I think, to
we wrote it on the website, on the White House website. They were like, actually, it didn't even happen if you think about it,
If there's a new administration in there, we could see sort of like, I really feel for Michael Fanone, for Harry Dunn. These folks they have not gotten what they deserve. Michael Fanone does not have the support that he has. He doesn't have the benefits that he has. Like, do you think that there is a time where these folks will get to sit down and really see them, get justice be served?
I can't speak to sort of the positive side of things. Maybe I can flip it and just talk about the negative, just because I believe that whether or not there are going to be lawsuits or, in the future, I do believe that the history that January 6th is going to remain very much alive in America, because Donald Trump needs people to either forget that moment or to condone that moment, because if he's successful in that, then he's going to be able to get people to buy off on any attack on democracy. And so I think fighting over the history of January 6th is going to be very much a part of our American politics for a long time to come.
Okay. I actually think that could be a positive. Brendan,
I think
don't you think so?
No, well, not just that. I think just yesterday, the former South Korean president was arrested and put in life imprisonment for fomenting an insurrection. And I saw this and I was like, wow, this looks familiar. And yet, look at how that went down. So I agree. I think this is important.
Brendan, where can we, our friends, find you?
If you're looking to support the Public Integrity Project, just go to publicintegrityproject.com. We, would love to have you join the listserv, suggest cases, contribute to the cause. If you want to find me, I'm on Blue Sky and Instagram, and probably not using either platform as often as I should be, but you guys can teach me how to do that stuff.
And wrote a great op-ed in the New York Times this week.
Yes, check that out too.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming by. We got to have you back. We got more. I got a lot more questions.
Thank you for having me. Take care.
Thank you,
Bye. Oh, brilliant.
I gotta say, like the one, we see so many of our institutions just like collapse every single day, but I will say one of the things that gives me heart is like, the courts are still working. Like, what a clever way of chipping away at what the Trump administration is doing by being like, hey, we know we can't go after the president, but we can be like collecting all of these cases on the side about his corruption. And, it gives me heart that like the courts are still doing their jobs in certain ways.
Olivia, do you feel like, we're going to see accountability queen?
I hope so. Whenever I hear somebody like Brandon talk, my mind always goes to, what were they like as a child? Like, do you think that they was he always interested in, like, as I'm listening, he's obviously so brilliant. And I'm like, was he like this as a child? Was he always interested in like the corruption of American history? I hope we do. I think he made a lot of good points about we are watching American history unfold right before our eyes. And so the way that we can have these conversations as parents and as teachers and educators, aunts and uncles, right, with our little, ones is going to really shape how we move forward through this. And I do think it's important to just always have places like this show, right, that we can come and get like the actual facts and information and say like so much of this work is accountability, and it's about education and learning what a hypothesis is and proving these things and, research, right, and being educated researchers.
I sent Meredith a voice memo yesterday saying effectively this, and like, this is all due respect, but like, there's so many people that I see on the internet who sort of bypass all of the levers of power and all of their own agency to like yell into the void about, we're at a place where only class warfare will work and that the Democrats and the Republicans are the same thing. And, and like, I get it in terms of like theory and ideology, but then you see people like Brendan and you're like, that is agency. Like that is chipping away at a corrupt system. And, like, how dare we yell into the void and throw our hands up and say like, the system is totally broken and it can't be fixed and we can't be a part of it and we can't know, when there's people who found creative and specific ways to tackle what's happening right now.
I agree, Rebecca. And we have grown up as like millennials, elder millennials, in a time where things have gotten progressively quicker, right? Like we're answering questions quicker. We're doing. That's not how history actually works. And I think that like we need to remember that, right? History takes time. It unfolds slowly. We learn things slowly. I think that Brandon was a great example of that, right? He took years on all of these things. He's taking time to build this new project. So many people are so quick, right, to jump to like, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. That's such a good point. Like, I know I love Brendan's work. I first found out about him because he's done he wrote an incredible book called Plunder about private equity. And I really appreciate his approach of like, when you ask him, like it's not just about Trump and it's not just about MAGA and it's not just about Republicans. Right? And I remember that was one of the sort of revelations I had when reading his book about Democrats, and because people always assume that Democrats are like just towing the straight and narrow when it comes to private equity involvement. Deeply untrue. There is like Republicans have been slightly more sort of like a friend to private equity, but Democrats, like, it's not some like huge disparity.
Right.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I think that's what I really appreciate about him. And that's why I think that like these folks who are like the Democrats and the Republicans are the same, whatever, they need to come and like listen to somebody like Brendan.
Yes,
Well,
exactly. Where it's like, yeah.
Yes, and it hasn't been like that through history, right? Like if you look at Lincoln's time, right, that was a completely different Democrat and Republican party, right? And so
Right.
parties have changed before our eyes in the last 20 years. But there's so many people that just look at the right here and right now on TikTok and they're scrolling.
Like, who's winning? Who's good? Who's bad? How am I morally? And yeah, I agree.
Well, at least it's Friday.
It is Friday.
And so I'm dying to know, Olivia, what's, we always end our shows with what's having a moment for us. And so I'd love to know, is there anything in your life that's having a moment for you?
Well, this is not going to be surprising for people who follow me, but divorce is having a moment. And if you saw this week, the wonderful Laura Wasser, who is a celebrity divorce lawyer, she is a friend of our podcasts. She released a line with Reformation that a lot of the proceeds go to helping women who need legal aid, I believe. And it is I wish I could afford the clothing. First of all, I joke, I'm a huge Laura Wasser fan and I love the clothing, but no divorced woman could actually afford any of those clothing. But she teamed up with them. And so, I've been banging this drum for 4 years, trying to make divorce, normalized and in the mainstream. And she's been a big part of that. But divorce is having a moment, right? When it's not just divorce, it's liberation, right? It's talking about these things, the SAVE Act, getting women's voices out there. And I'm just really proud of so many women who are speaking up about their stories, because that is how we share the information. But yeah, divorce is having a glam moment, and I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
My theory. It's a blanket statement, but I'm just going to say it. The most normal people get divorced.
Yeah. I also want to plug our own previous show. We just did a deep dive on the Project 250, it's the Heritage Foundation sort of like update on Project 2026, where it like goes into like 250 years of saving marriage and like how much of it is about dissuading women from being single, taking away their agency, forcing them into marriage, taking away, there you go, taking away financial and education and government subsidies for like the ability for women to be on their own. So,
Rebecca, yesterday, I talk to women every day who are going through divorce. That's part of my job for free if anybody needs it. I was talking to a woman yesterday who was a top 1% of the country, and she has spent upwards of $500,000 on her divorce, and she is left with almost nothing, right? And so, I think that we often think about like divorce. Divorce does destroy women financially, but why? There's so much financial abuse happening. And that's really the conversation that I've been trying to have a lot lately. It's not just like women, who are below the poverty line. We're talking about very wealthy women who do not have the ability to buy their kids cereal. And like, why is that happening? So lots to dig in there, but yes, divorce.
I know we're towards the end of the show, but like, this is so fascinating to me. And I could just like rage about it because there's been so much talk about conservative feminism and like pulling and trad wives and pulling back. And I'm like, it wasn't until 1972 that women were allowed to have their own credit line. Like, it is so recent that women were even allowed to have their own money. And like the amount that we are tied to having to be attached to men in order to have any amount of resources. I could go on and on about this with you.
I'll come back. We can talk about it another day. Yes.
You must. Brilliant.
Well, Rebecca, what's having a moment for you?
Okay, a lot less intellectual. I think maybe at this point we've all seen it, but it turns out RFK Jr. is a never nude. And this is very important to me for those of us who are Arrested Development fans. Tobias Fuenke brought this forward to us. cannot be nude, has to wear the jean shorts. And RFK Jr. released this video with his, ashtray of a friend, Kid Rock, showing them exercising. Play like a couple of seconds of this clip. Okay.
You guys, I love that song. I love that song. Yes.
Okay, what is this is not an exercise. Kid Rock, this is, I think, maybe the first time he's ever done a sit-up. I also feel like I want to know what the director was doing.
Relatable King.
Okay.
Relatable King if he's never done a sit-up. Okay.
Them in the sauna. He's left his jeans on. Oh, and look at him. He's about to go into the cold plunge with his jeans. I just find this whole thing to be wild. And I just want to yell at, like, kiss. Just kiss. Like, it's
I was going to say, I would not want to be in the bathroom with these guys. So
I think that, like, there's something about this. I live in West Hollywood, which is like, the epitome of gay camp culture. And like, they've really nailed gay camp culture here. Just kiss. Anyways, what's having a moment for me is just how unhinged and bizarre this video is. And it was released, by the way, by the government, the Department of Health and Human Services. This wasn't like Kid Rock's personal account. So that's what's having a moment for me is RFK Jr. is a never nude.
Well, I don't know. So wait, did my tax dollars go to that?
Yes, that's what I'm saying is whoever was in the background being like, all right, kid, now you're going to take off your shirt and you're going to slap his butt and you're going to drink some whole milk. Like whoever edited that is being paid for.
The font alone. Yeah.
The font alone. What's having a moment for you, Meredith? Let's move on.
I'll tell you what's having a moment for me. It's a little more wholesome. Having a moment for me is for the first time in 24 years, a U.S. woman has won the Olympic gold medal. Alyssa Liu took home the gold last night in ladies figure skating. Some people know this. I'm a huge, huge figure skating fan. I have been for a long time. And I really like these three young women who were, the three women that went for the U.S. But Alyssa, to me, what's so interesting about her is that she took two and a half years off from competitive skating. And she had been like really like type A on skating. Like it was a very intense thing that she'd done for all these years. And when she decided to come back, what she said is she was like, I'm going to do it on my own terms. I'm not going to I'm doing it for fun. Like, I'm not going to do it the way that I did it before. And it's like, to me, I think it's such an incredible lesson for all of us, like for me included, is like, if you're out there and you're having fun and you're doing it, it doesn't mean that you're not taking it seriously. It doesn't mean that you can't do a good job, but like, look at what happens when you lean into that. And the other thing that I love is I was looking last night at some of these, I was reading about the rivalry of, there's a huge rivalry of Nancy Kerrigan and Tanya Harding, and I'm obsessed with that. And I've talked about it for years, but the rivalry of Tara Lipinski and Michelle Kwan, I was reading about it a little bit last night. And like, it's so heartbreaking because like these were two young women who were in this like huge pressure situation being pitted against each other by adults.
Yeah.
And like they look back on it now with grace and they're like, oh, we're so glad we had each other. And they didn't have like the Nancy Kerrigan, Tanya Harding situation happening, but like still why? And like these three women on the the women's Olympic team are not like that. They're cheering each other on. They're rooting for one another. And it's just like, that is what women can have. Like we can all be part of each other's successes. And I just love that young women and girls have that example.
Yeah, I agree. I know. Space for everybody. We're raised on an idea that there's only space for one. I remember that. I remember the Tara Lipinski, Michelle Kwan, like pitting against one another.
And they were babies. When you look back on it, I'm like,
wasn't Tara like 15? She was like really.
Yeah.
I think they were younger than all the women, maybe the other, but they were younger than all the women who are even on this Olympic team. And so like to pit women against each other like that is just, I'm like, sometimes we talk about like, are we moving forward? Are we making progress? Like when I see things like that, Yeah, I think so. And like, what a just cool story. So anyway, 24 years since a U.S. Woman has won the Olympic gold. And I think that Alyssa Liu is a great person for, like, I always think it's cheesy when people are like, this is a great person for young women to look up to. But yes, you know what is going to be another great thing that's happening Tuesday night. Rebecca and I are hosting a State of the Union watch party in partnership with the Democratic National Committee. We're going to be streaming live. We're going to be on at 5:30 PST, 8:30 EST. We have some of your favorite guests popping on. We have V from Under the Desk News coming on. We have our friend Jenny Yang, who's a fantastic comedian, coming by. We have some lawmakers that we're confirming. So we're going to be just watching the State of the Union, hearing all the hottest gossip on our country with all of you. So come up.
That's exactly what it is. It's just the hot gossip from our country.
Dude, I don't look that hot these days. It's always a nice reminder. But anyway, people keep telling me like my photo's a catfish on TikTok. And I'm like, no, it's just good lighting, baby.
Yeah.
Like, I can look like that with the right scrubbing.
I don't know, Meredith. I disagree. I can't even tell you how many people DM me to be like, what does Meredith do to her skin? And I'm like,
liberal tears, baby. Liberal tears. You guys, Olivia, can you tell our friends where they can find you?
Sure. On Instagram, I'm Olivia Howell, and I say this every time. If you need any divorce support, please DM me. I answer every DM. I answer every email myself. So I'm here. Our mission is to make sure nobody goes through divorce alone ever again, and we mean that. And then you can go to freshstartsregistry.com to browse our amazing experts, get some free consultations, build your registry for free, get tons of education, and Divorce Happens is our podcast. So go check that out. Thanks, Meredith.
Thank you, Olivia. Rebecca, we will see everybody back here Tuesday evening. We can't wait to hang with you. And yeah, stay tuned.
thank you so much for being here, Olivia. Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you, Rebecca.